up to item 7, which is the oath of office. And Mr. King will perform the oath of office on our provisional appointee to the board of the school district.
All right, come on up, Brandon Rougue. How are you? Good. Good evening. Good. If you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Brandon Rougue, do solemnly swear that I will support.
Do solemnly swear that I will support
And defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations. I'd like to just share a little bit about Mr. Rougue, and then just if the board has any comments, but I've tried to get to know a lot of members of the community. I think I first met you when Mr. Lackey invited us, the superintendent, to a roundtable discussion, and got to know you a couple times after that as a alumni, a volleyball player, and played football too, as I understand it. And you have with you tonight your mom, Susan Rougue. Hi, pleasure to meet you. And you have your dad, Nathaniel. Pleasure to see you. And then your brother, Shay. Hi. And then Christina, sister-in-law. Hi. And Kaylee, girlfriend. Hi. So, hi. Welcome, and congratulations to all of you. This truly is a great honor, and and I think you're going to take great pride in the selfless service that we all do. So, again, welcome aboard. We have a seat for you.
You're not getting out there.
Actually, I gotta give her credit for that one.
We get the photo while we line.
This is all very quaint.
For an opportunity to welcome our newest member, should you so choose, starting with you, Mr. Jorgensen?
Starting with me. Well, I'm just glad that Brandon's here. I've known Brandon for a number of years, both on the football field, in the classroom, and on the volleyball court. And if he brings half the energy that he brought to there, and the dedication and the focus, we've got a great board member. Welcome, Brandon. Appreciate it.
I waited a long time to do this. Welcome, Brandon. I am glad you are here. I believe you have the focus and integrity to offer us something that we don't already have up here. When the last election was held, and you did really admirably, but Uncle Drew got in your way. I think this was meant to be, and I'm glad to see you here. There's something about you I'm not sure everybody understands. You're a public sector employee. I think your political colleagues will be intrigued when they finally realize you are now the Honorable Brandon Rougue. And I think that, when that happened to me where I work, it was like, city council, like, really, what's going on with politics? But I think the people that you work with, at the level you work at the regional level, are going to be happy for you, and I think that they're going to realize that you've jumped up a notch. I think that you have access to regional assembly representatives that we don't have now, and I'm glad you're here. So you have a meaningful access to that level where you can advocate for us at that level here. I think that the day will come, because I've heard you have political aspirations. Imagine that, maybe that's why you're sitting here now. God, I'm so smart.
Only sitting here to help the community.
Right, so, but I think what's gonna happen is someday you're gonna have to like maybe choose between 5,000 jobs over there and upsetting Jackie Air. Listen, there are 5,000 people I'd rather have go against me at once than her. So keep her happy, she's good for you at the county, but son, I'm glad you are here. All right, you.
Well, I'm much shorter than that. Brennan, thank you so much. I've met you a few times even before you ran as a board member. I've always been really impressed by the way you carry yourself out in the public, and you have a high sense of integrity, and you're just an all-around nice person. And so I really love the fact that you were a former student, and so I know that you love serving people. I believe you do that because you really want to. And also just giving us a different perspective as a former student. I look forward to getting to know you better and working with you, and I'm really excited to have you on our board.
Thank you so much.
I'll just echo what Kelly said. You've got a former educator in the district, at least 3 former parents of students, but we've never, not that I'm aware of, had a former student of the district actually represented. So I think that's kind of a nice mix. And believe me, I take you entirely at your word that you're here to serve the community, because that's all we're doing, you know. And for the good and the bad and the craziness, all we're here is trying to make life good for our kids and their families. So thank you for helping us with that.
Thank you.
Let's see, you said your piece. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to item 8.
Okay, do you have a copy of the agenda, a printed copy?
Oh,
She has a printed copy of it.
There you go, welcome aboard. Thank you. Okay, item 8. I've got 1 yellow card here. Any further yellow cards? Okay, so let's see. What's on the yellow card here is not something agendized, so now would be the right time. So I'd like to call up Mr. Schreiner. And Mr. Schreiner, it's a little bit formal. When you come on up, just say your name for the record into the microphone there. And just so you know how this works, we're listening, but it's not a back and forth, so you'll have 3 minutes to say what you want, but rest assured we're listening. I just don't recognize you from being here before. Those are kind of the rules.
Yeah, I'm not familiar
You cool?
with this kind of stuff.
That's why I'm helping you out. So
I got you.
I'm gonna give you your 3 and we are listening, although we're not gonna.
Okay.
You'll see our heads pop up and down.
Okay.
Okay, here you go. And don't forget to say your name.
Did I say that first?
Yep. Go for
Okay,
it.
gotcha. Richard Schreiner. My son Alakai just got into school down the street, and the bus picks him up. But where he has to walk to is there's a lot of people that speed on the street, and I don't feel it's very safe. And I just wanted to see if we can probably get it to, we just moved there, so it's on the paper. It's Lake Meadow, I believe, and Indian Oak, right there. If that's possible.
To take a look at where the stop is now.
Yeah,
And where it might be.
Yeah.
held out.
yeah. Because there's a lot of people that speed on that street, and like everybody's going to work, and I don't feel it's very safe for him, so.
Mr. King, it's something we can look into.
we'll follow up.
Can't promise there's a design for the routes, but.
Do you know about how long that would take, or?
We'll get back to you soon because it's transportation, that's important.
Okay,
So I would say within 24 hours, you'll have a call back.
okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in. All right. Okay, we're up to number 9 on the agenda, AATA representative. Is there?
No, she's not here.
Okay, none today. And CSA. Nothing to report?
This time, no, thank you. Welcome back, guys.
No problem. Many of us saw you all during the week, starting school. Okay, 9.03, our student representatives to the board. You want to-
Sure. So, this is Caroline Fox, and we kind of, over the past couple of years, established sort of a passing of the torch from the previous student representation. And they've all been wonderful, and I got to know you a little bit last year, and I know you'll be wonderful. So welcome aboard, and just so you know, you're welcome, even though you're not a voting member of the board, you're always welcome to state your opinion. Lokert was kind of notorious for that. Alyssa was quieter on things like that, so it's just all about your personal style and comfortability. But if something comes up and you have a question or a comment about a topic or an item that the board's discussing, you are welcome to participate.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I already did. I did, yeah, but I'll publicly state it too. But we chatted about the fact that she's a student, so if Caroline needs to leave during the meeting, nobody here takes offense to it, and we encourage the independent thinking whenever you feel it's time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so nice to meet you all. So at Meadowlark this week, back to school night is going to be approaching for the parents. There's lots of new kindergartners, very excited to start school. The Meadowlark PTO was nice enough to provide parents of the students with donuts and coffee on the first day of school. On Friday, the students will be greeted by their staff of their PBSI events, and the staff will cheer on the students with pom-poms as they walk through the gate just to make them feel welcome. And then Monday morning, we'll have the first outdoor morning buzz assembly where Mrs. Toledo will introduce the kids and the staff. The PBSI standards will be enforced. If you don't know what that is, it means be respectful, be responsible, be safe. And then all of the school board members are welcome to go watch the assembly and invited to. So that's what's happening at Meadowlark. At High Desert, next week, volleyball tryouts will be held on Tuesday. And then I heard that the first day of school there went very smoothly and everyone's happy to be back. And then as for Vasquez, the girls volleyball had their first game on Wednesday night against Little Rock High School. Girls tennis had tryouts all of this week. And then tomorrow morning is the senior sunset, senior sunrise, sorry. So the students will just go and watch the sunrise as kind of like a final marking of their year beginning. And Perkin Up was generous enough to donate donuts and coffee to our class. ASB, Associated Student Body, is holding elections for the 9th and 10th grade officers. Additions for the herd, our choir group, are going to be held this week. More, just a student dance, is coming up on August 31st. And then on the first day of school, Mr. Barkaway welcomed all the students at the entrance of the school on the first day, which got the school going on a really positive note. And then volleyball has a home game tonight against AV High School. And then lastly, football has an away game on Friday, tomorrow, against Whittier Christian High School. So that's what's going on this week and next week.
Do you know how the Wednesday's volleyball game went, by the way?
I think they fought hard but couldn't pull it off against Little Rock. Yeah. So, yeah.
Any questions?
No, if we could just get a time of the assembly for.
Okay, I will.
The assembly will be at 8:30 on Monday.
On Monday, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for your report. All right, we're up to 9.04, Superintendent Safety Report. Mr. King?
Okay, so just a couple of things. We have our district safety committee, which will continue. We're going to now meet quarterly. We'll continue to do our work with the sort of inter-district Antelope Valley, where all the districts in the area are participating, sort of collaborating on what they're doing, brainstorming what they're doing for crisis prevention. But then I got this interesting email from the county superintendent that I just wanted to share. So Dr. Duardo shared that we're all keenly aware of the threat of gun violence and the divisions sowed by hate. You'll be hearing soon about the school threat assessment response team called START. The program, a countrywide collaboration to help detect threats of violence in schools and used to provide mental health services. So this program START is going to be, they've been in action for a while, but now they're reaching out to school districts. So the Los Angeles County School Threat Assessment and Response Team has expanded across the county in an effort to meet an increasing demand for vigilance and proactive service. START is comprised of multidisciplinary teams of mental health professionals dedicated to preventing targeted school violence in partnership with law enforcement, school systems, human service, health and human service providers, families, households, and ultimately the community at large. They provide training, consultation, screening, assessment, identification, intervention, and case management alongside risk mitigation services. Timely interventions have prevented school shootings, and START, a proactive model established a decade ago to address the need for a comprehensive threat prevention and management program. So we're going to be getting involved with that, which I think is very good. And then the other counter measure, not just for threats of violence, but for folks entering our campus that shouldn't be on our campus, is the Raptor system. So the Raptor system, for those who don't know, that will be beginning on September 1st. And we'll make sure that our parents and community are aware of it. We'll be sending out an all-call and letters to explain it, but essentially you take your ID out if you have not been to that school site, you'll slide it into the scanner, and a badge will be printed out. If a trigger comes up electronically, for example, if somebody's identified under Megan's Law, then the secretary will have been trained, the office staff will have been trained, so will the principal, so that they'll know how to respond in a situation like that. But that individual would not be allowed on campus, of course. And unfortunately, in so many instances where they've instituted the system, it's working, and so schools across the country are constantly shocked, but also thankful that they now have the system in place. So that's it for the safety report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
9.05, superintendent report, the gold standard.
Okay, so the gold standard, for those who don't know, that's our newly developed strategic plan for the school district. So we have not yet had a unifying document that was a living, breathing document in which all stakeholders had buy-in. So we had the first 2 meetings to develop that plan back in June, right? I think the school was letting out maybe June 3rd and 10th. So we had board member representation, parent representation, teachers, classified employees, administrators, and it was facilitated by Doug Demeen from Leadership Associates, and I thought they did a terrific job. And so the job of the district team over the summer was to take that plan, write it up, make sure that we got everybody's input, share it back out with all stakeholders, which we did, and we conducted a survey to make sure that we captured the intent of what they had brainstormed in that 2-day period. It looks like we did, and so we've had a subsequent 3 meetings. On August 5th and 6th, we met with our administrative team, all management, including Ernesto, I don't see him here tonight, and Paulette, who works in nutrition services, of course our 3 principals, Lynn David, Dr. Cooper. We all met for 2 days and went over what role do we each play now that we have these objectives from the stakeholders. So, for example, if it was increasing student achievement, even though I work in nutrition services, what role do I play in that? And I want to thank Dr. Bice and Ms. Toledo for facilitating that 2-day workshop. And the way they did it was engaging, it was enjoyable, it was meaningful, and we came away with several charts outlining the outcomes and what roles and responsibilities we each play in that. So thank you very much, the 2 of you, for doing that and seeking input from Dr. Cooper and Ms. David and myself and putting that all together. So it was a great team effort. I see Lucy in the audience, Lucy Tone, and so we included our confidential along with management in that input as well. So Lucy Tone thought of it through the eyes of, as onboarding employees, what role do I play in that? And Yolanda from the role of the superintendent's office. So that's the update on the gold standard. Next steps would be, we want to bring it to the board for a first read in September. I said there were 3 meetings, so August 5th and 6th. The 3rd meeting was with our consultant again, Doug Demeen, brought him back into the picture along with our graphic artists, designers. So when we've done a lot of the marketing that you've seen around the district and up on the boardroom walls, it's very important that this plan, as I say, become a living, breathing document. I was at Palmdale School District today, where Ms. Jensen works, and I saw the first thing you see when you walk in the office is 4 documents up on the wall articulating the Palmdale Promise. And it's evident that it's visible, that that's how they get buy-in, and you know, people can articulate it, and that's how that happens, through proper public relations and making sure that we continue to ask people for input, reevaluate the plan, and make sure that we're carrying out our role in that plan. So that's where we're at, and then the second read and board approval would be the second board meeting in September. So that's it for the gold standard. Thank you.
How about superintendent report 9.6?
Okay, so because we don't have new construction in our agenda any longer, I just added a note to myself just to do a facilities update to keep us aware of what's happening around our school districts with facilities. So we do have the green light, finally totally good with Acton School to move forward on facilities. So Ernesto Mora and Mike Arona and Lynn David have been meeting with the consultant or the contractor for moving the fence. They actually have 2 quotes for fence removal. They have 1 quote for fence replacement. And just as a reminder for the board, I think it was over a year ago, you approved 2 rail fence to mirror the fence across the street. The only difference between the fence that's, I don't know what direction that is, but the white fence over there and the park fence.
Southwest.
Thank you, sir. So those fences are less sturdy than the one we're putting up. The one we're putting up is a synthetic material as well, but it's metal material. So we didn't want something like vinyl where students or adults could lean on it and could bang their break or something like that. So making progress on the fence. Metal Art, Proposition 39, funds were used to do the air conditioning replacements, repair of rubber padding on the playground, replacement of vinyl flooring in the hallway office at Metal Art is amazing. If you haven't been over there, I think you're really going to appreciate the work that was done there, and Ernesto Mora oversaw all this work over the summer. Reseeding, leveling of the quad is complete at Metal Art, and the asphalt cracks have been filled in on the campus. At High Desert, the irrigation system has been repaired. Reseeding of the quad area is complete. At the high school, working with the project manager and architect to close out phase 3. The district's negotiating in terms of a settlement for a closeout, and the planters landscape has been filled with gravel and mulched. The AADUSD campus, roof repairs are completed, and maintenance custodial department, detailed cleaning has taken place on all sites. Detailed work on grounds and landscaping was completed, and general maintenance in all classrooms and restrooms has been completed to date. So that's the facilities piece. And you know, there was some training that took place over the summer. I won't go into detail, but I just want to thank our principals again, who we did Illuminate training over the summer, which is a program we already have, but we felt like we just needed a refresher on it. So I want to thank the teachers and staff and principals that attended that training. And it's an accountability system for our students. So it's an assessment system where you can customize assessments, you can network with other colleagues and see what assessments they've developed, and it can be used for benchmark assessments across all curriculum. For PBIS, that's the Positive Behaviors, Interventions, and Supports. Jackie Ayer brought it to my attention, along with a couple other parents, that we'd just like to get some parent education on that piece. And to that end, Dr. Cooper is working on a presentation from the presenters that did the training for our teachers. So we're going to get that in place. There's a lot of mythology around it in terms of, you know, essentially giving cookies to kids for misbehaving, or only looking for the positive and never having any negative consequence. So it actually increases accountability, but it's an in-depth program. So I think it's important that we have the trainers out to clarify a lot of that. We're continuing our relationship with the Wolf Connection. I have a meeting with the CEO of the Wolf Connection, which, for those who don't know, it's right in our backyard here. There's a facility to take in wolves and wolf hybrids from around the country. And they get calls to rescue them from people that have bought them or taken them in. and then realize what a responsibility that is, and then call places like this to help them out and take them in. But more, just as important as the rehabilitation for the animals is they do rehabilitation for students and adults, and work with CEOs, administrators, students, and they do terrific work over there. And they're willing to do pro bono work with our district, so just continuing that relationship. Our DLAC has really come a long ways. DLAC is the District Advisory Language Committee, and we haven't had that in place for several years. So we put it in place last year. We had 3 meetings with our DLAC parents, and it grew up to about 25 folks with our last meeting in June. They now have a president, a vice president, a secretary. They went through that governance process, and so we're going to integrate them into our monthly or close to monthly PTSO meetings. So the president will now be joining us at our meetings, Ms. Martin. We already have the ASMO president there, so we want to bridge all these parent groups together. There's a lot of potential for them to continue the good work they're doing, and you're going to meet them, the cabinet, so to speak, and then their constituents that would like to meet you are going to be here in September. So we're going to introduce you to our DLAC committee, and I want to thank our principals who do the ELAC, the English Language Advisory Council at the site, have been doing a great job with their sites, keeping us in compliance and holding those meetings. So thank you for doing that. Let's see. So I think that's it. I think we're ready for a video. We do have a video that was. Okay. So we have a video that was created by Ms. Van Ornum and students, and always appreciate what the students do in our video production classes.
before using.
So, thank you, please thank your students for that. That was a great video. One of the things that the board has recognized through our governance training is that the importance of focusing on student learning. And so one of the reasons that we show these videos and bring up students and have them do things at board meetings and have our principals talk about what's happening at the school sites is to keep the focus there. We always have business, we have consent agenda, we have personnel, but we do want to keep the focus where it needs to be on our students and their learning. I have a lot to learn as I watch that video because I didn't know what sublimation was, and so I need to visit some of those science classes. The other thing is that I love that piece on, I wrote down fun equals learning. We learn so much better when we're enjoying it. It becomes so much more meaningful and engaging when the students are active, when they can get their hands on things, when they can have the manipulatives like they do in there, and when they can create their own learning and do that through discovery. And your staff, Dr. Weiss, and teachers like you, Ms. Van Orn, are creating that for our students, and we thank you very much. So that's fabulous. Thank you. Before we go farther, I was going to wait till the personnel action report, but I realized we have some younger people in our family here, Mr. Brockway, so I'd like to take just a moment, if the board's okay with it, to introduce folks. So we have Mr. Brockway, who's our new principal at the high school, and he brings to us a sense of passion, integrity, knowledge, experience of the principalship, and he began his work at VHS on Monday, August 12th. A lot of people have stopped by to see him since then, and you just made a very quick physical presence and a high visibility, which has been tremendous. We are so happy to have you here. It was a rigorous interview process over the summer. There was many applicants, but we went out twice, posted it twice. Our interview panel worked tirelessly on this, including Ms. Martin, who's here tonight, and our principals. So we just are truly blessed to have you here. And if you would like to introduce your family.
So this is my lovely, beautiful wife of, I think 12 years now, Elena.
Nice to meet you.
This is my daughter, Chloe. She's 19 years old. And my son, Logan, he's 9, and he has a little bit of a stuffy nose. So he's, so these are the 3 people that keep me going and give me the passion, because I want a better future for them, and I want a better future for all of the students that we work with. So they're I have the pictures up against my window, and I used to have them on my wall, and I just called it my reason wall, just because if I'm having a bad day, I just look at those pictures and remember why I do what I do.
Well, and the way you're speaking now is how he always is. You are such a transparent, humble, honest person. I've enjoyed all the dialogue we've had and appreciate all the effort you put in a very short time. If you're okay with it, maybe we can get a picture with you and the board and the family. Yeah. You're a special educator and an administrator with the Fresno Unified School District. Having been born and raised in the Santa Clarita Valley, I know you've shared with me that this is a sense of coming home. I think your parents live out this way, correct? And the field of special education and students we serve is a passion for him, and that's why he got into the field of education. And again, since you've been here, just jumped in with both feet immediately, and he quickly has organized his office so well. So within the first week, I know I was here on a Friday afternoon one day over the summer, and he had all these boxes stacked up with all the files that need to be archived, ones that are current, ones that are, you know, higher profile or you need to keep track of. So quickly did that, quickly gave me a spreadsheet that was about 6 pages long with every student on it, the status of the IEP, the case manager, and so on, by site. So just you quickly just jumped in, didn't waste any time with the 6 months of handshaking, as Mr. Falsgraf says, and got busy, rolled up your sleeves and got to work. So we welcome you, we thank you. Would you please come up and take your photo out?
And 9:20 board member comments, and we usually just work our way down.
You're on.
Well, I really only have one comment today, and that's to thank all of you, thank everyone in the audience for, first off, coming to the board meetings in general. I think it's great seeing the people that I was sitting down there with. Thank you guys all so much for the kind words, all the support. I truly look forward to helping the district grow, and I can't wait to spend the next year or so with you guys doing whatever I can to help the district. Thank you.
Well, first I want to welcome Mr. Broadway, principal of the high school. I'll be watching you. And Dr. Bice moved out of the way. And then also for Tim. Tim, what's your last name again?
Allison.
Allison. He forgot to tell you, he's a Hart High graduate. Go Indians. So there's lots going on. Grew up in Santa Clarita, so we've got a good man there. I think it's going to work out well. My comments go around. I want to congratulate all our students for succeeding last year and moving up a grade level. We got a new group, and then any new students that have joined our district, I think that's terrific that we have a great thing to offer them. I want to congratulate all of our, and wish the well to all of our classified and our certificated personnel, because they are working in the trenches for us. They're the ones that are hands-on, first up, stepping up there, dealing with student issues and concerns and making sure they feel comfortable and safe, and they do a good job of that. I did it for many years, and I know a lot of my colleagues are still here, and they're working very hard. Moves up to the administrators. You have a difficult job in front of you, but you have such a rewarding one that you get to support all of your staff, making sure all your students are safe and comfortable on their campuses, meeting your parents and responsibilities, and that's what drives us. And then we elevate to our superintendent, Mr. King. He's got a difficult task. He's going to support you with Dr. Cooper and Ms. David and all the others at the district office to make sure that we have one of the best districts. We have a small one, but we have special kids here. And I'm going to be watching to make sure that those kids get met. If we focus on the student needs, the parents we won't have to worry about. Let's take care of our kids, make sure that they're comfortable, they're safe, they're secure. And as we learned in our CSBA training, okay is not okay. If they're doing okay, let's put the bar up. Let's move them up another notch. Let's challenge them one more time. They're strong enough, they're resilient enough, and I want to make sure that we give them that opportunity. And I see our president from PTSO here. PTSO has a standard that goes well beyond gold. We thank you for all your help and support. We're looking forward to this next year. Thank you.
Okay, I have a few things, Kelly. This may be a good time for you to take a nap. Ms. Fox, welcome. I actually care that you're here. Facilities. I'm hearing noise about handbells and the keyboard room, both of which I'm ignorant to. But there seems to be a problem with heat, so put a temperature gauge in there and track it, and please have a look at that. I want to thank all the staff who conducted ESY and summer school sessions for our students this year. I'd like to recognize transportation and SPED staff members, Martin Tapia, who's a bus driver, and Cindy Manzanares, who is an aide, who both were handed Stay Gold coins on the bus the last morning of the ESY session. Thank you. Again, it's time for the Jackie Air Show. I want to talk to you a little bit about, Jackie kind of keeps us in touch of, if I can figure out what she's talking about after a while. She started to tell us about that there's relaxation of the housing density standards in North Los Angeles County, meaning that the tent camps and some of the old RV parks are going to become attractive to people that are moving in maybe out of downtown LA tent camps where the election is kind of coming around. I don't think that's popular for a mayor candidate to have that there. So I went to a meeting of the Westside Urban Forum as an urban forester for the agency I represent. But I had a chance to talk to Lauren Faber, who's Mayor Garcetti's Chief Sustainability Officer, regarding the potential displacement of those tent camps up into here. Those people are already disenfranchised, so moving them out here would further disenfranchise them by starting off, there is no mass transit, there is no, Jackie's back there ready to jump up and tell me a million things that wouldn't be fair to these people. But what I'm concerned about is, down in there is a focus of county health and city health and mental health services that I don't think is up here. I do like ADA, but I don't like people coming up here completely disenfranchised and not knowing they're coming. I've already had cursory conversations with Superintendent King and our new SPED Services Director, Dr. Tim, back there. And I was very impressed with Dr. Tim right away because he has the ability to jump past IEPs and whether or not they're being held on time and into issues like how to deal with disenfranchised homeless people and get people pointed towards services. And his background is in a much larger metropolitan area, so welcome, Tim. Speaking of SPED and Dr. Tim, the CAC of the SELPA, which is a Community Advisory Committee, is firing back up for the year. It's a great place to stay on top of the positive things you can do to know about special education in your district and support it. There's all kinds of training that is available for parents, and I think the district should have a strong representation. They're considered going to the CAC meetings for the SELPA. One more time, Dr. Tim, I want to welcome you and the other employees I met at the breakfast. There's a great promise in the new employees I met. There's some of them I have known for years from other placements and know them to be true professionals. When I talked to everyone there, I reminded them that this is a small district. What you are going to do here is going to make a difference. There is no one to hide behind. You will be directly measurable here as an employee. And isn't that great? Or not? Welcome aboard anyway. Mr. Brockway, where'd he go? Good. It's too bad your family can't hear. This is gonna be really good for you at home. I will sell you a copy of my GoPro tape for $20. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your humble nature. I can tell already you're quiet. One of the people that is everywhere all the time, and you can't get away from you. I see that. That's going to be Andy up in the parking lot at our school. But I think what's really important here is that the community participated in the recruitment process. It's ultimately up to Mr. King on who he chooses to hire. But I'm so glad the community helped select you, sir. And when the community is involved in a hiring of a person, I'm a firm believer. I've worked for Steve Wynn and a couple other high dollar companies, and I'm a firm believer that if you give employees the ability to be excellent and provide them what they need, then the impetus for them to be excellent employees is on them. So I think the community has handed you a welcome key to the school, and I very much like it that you are supported in every way. And now we can just watch what he's going to do instead of trying to manipulate him into what we don't know what we need him to be. And I just said a ton there, and I hope everyone's listening. How you doing, Kelly? I'm halfway. The more bored you look, the slower I go. Okay.
Hurry, I gotta go to work tomorrow.
I don't. You should get a job like me. Thanks to the booster, so you don't want me to talk about the booster and the PTSO, I know you do. Okay. I saw enrollment sessions going on at 2 schools. I personally walked in there and saw what was going on. So does anyone know what our LCAP says about some of our goals with English learners and Title I students? Do you really know what that means? Because we sit up here and rubber stamp this and say, okay, we should do that, and that's great. But I think I need to connect some dots for everybody out there. If you look at any normally functioning public agency, there is a priority exercise, and this board sits up and realizes, you know, this is what we should be focused on, and that becomes something that the community buys into. If the community doesn't buy into it, then there's no reason for them to vote to you, and you shouldn't be up here. Remember that in about X number of months.
14.
Okay, thank you, Tim. But the priority exercise becomes a basis for the strategic plan, which is a Kelly initiative. She's got something over there that's been going on for years and it's successful. But how does that measure up when the community isn't engaged? So I see at these enrollments that our community's engaged, the community is engaged, and you see it in the most simple things like, if you walk in and you don't speak English well, and you're at a new school, and and there's nobody around to help you, how do you feel? You feel disenfranchised and scared. You don't feel welcome. And so when you feel welcome, do you really want to go to the school if you don't feel welcome? That's where our ADA bleed off goes to. What if you're someone that's got a free and reduced lunch program application so everyone can look at you and make their status judgment? You know, the kids with the ponies can look down on you, right? I saw people going around protecting the dignity of children at those things, and that was our parent groups, our PTSO and booster clubs, and that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where kids get retained, not just us up here saying, yeah, that looks good, do it. Thank you. Stop crying now. And I'll end by saying this. The DLAC, ELAC, what is it? Both? Perfect, good. Do you know that they actually provided refreshments for our staff at Meadowlark the first day of school? And it will be my expectation that DLAC, ELAC, whatever LAC, and the booster clubs and the PTSO become one unit for the purpose of retaining ADA. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Perfect, I'm done. Kelly.
Well, thank you. First of all, welcome back, everyone. Thank you to our staff that worked so hard this summer, all the administrators. There is no summer. Welcome to Tim and welcome to Mr. Brockway. We're excited to have you. We've heard great things about you, and we're really excited to start our school year. And thanks to our veteran principals for all that you do. Welcome back to our teachers. You know, teachers don't have a long summer like everyone thinks. Everyone's always planning and getting ready for the next school year. So thank you for that. I heard it was a great beginning, so I look forward to a really great school year. I think we have a great team and we have great people on staff. So I know we can do some great things this year. Welcome to Brendan again. I welcome you, and a great breakfast. It was really fun to see the staff excited to come back to work. At least if they acted excited. So that was great. And then welcome to Caroline. Welcome, and we look forward to working with you this year and hearing your ideas. Please make sure that you can share. And it's always nice when you report what's going on in the schools, because usually it's the students that are really honest and they tell us what you need and what's going on there. I have a comment about the DLAC and the ELAC. Yeah, they need to work together, but also they have to have their separate meetings. And I think it's really important that we are getting our parents' voices, especially our DLAC. They should be having more meetings in just a few years, so you can make sure that those are scheduled at a regular time so that the parents know when it's happening, so that they can give you some input and bring that back to us, what their needs are. That would be great. And not just for compliance, because it's the right thing to do. Taking care of our families and our parents is more than just being compliant. It's doing the right thing, which I know that we all want to do. I look forward to personal story. I cleaned out my closet and I found my Vasquez blankets again. Remember the applicants from a few years ago? Those of you that didn't have them, they last for years and they're fabulous. So don't be jealous of football games when I bring those out. I think I have two. So I look forward to a football game, and if you don't have students that play, come out. It's just a great way to unite our community and have fun and see each other and support our booster clubs and our students. And so I'm excited to start football season. I love sports, and Tim knows that. I know Tim will be there, so at least have someone to hang out with. So I look forward to that. So look forward to a great year, and I love this community. I think that we have a fantastic community, and I just look forward to a great year.
I echo my fellow board members' welcome to the new folks. Glad to have you. We have a pretty short agenda tonight, so that's good for the rest of the meeting. And because it's a little bit short, I'm going to take a little advantage to say, talk about two basic things. First one, just for awareness. So I was watching the Channel 9 news at 8 o'clock a couple nights ago, and there was a news story on where an official at the LA Unified was talking about how we need to increase school funding, which you've heard me talk about repeatedly. It's called full and fair funding, which is to make the pie bigger for everyone. But along, having said this, you know, he's comparing, he says, you know, if the New York City schools spend $29,000 per kid, and here in LA Unified, his numbers, not mine, we only have $18,000 per kid. And I found myself talking back to the TV and saying, well, you know, 20 miles away in Acton, we're doing it on $10,000 a kid. Almost half. And, you know, I know why that is. It's the way the LCFF funding formula is, and it's meant to close the achievement gap. And I understand that, and I support that principally. And it's to provide equity. But, you know, sometimes maybe you could take equity and go a little too far with it. Because a factor of 2, 9,000 to 18,000, or maybe it's 10,000, 18,000, is huge. And many of our expenses are the same as theirs. We're all trying to pay teachers a living wage. We all have to keep lights on and air conditioners on. And it was just, you know, it was just shocking to me. And you know, to the extent anybody listens to a board member in Acton, it's a conversation the state should have. Sure, the pie should get bigger, but when you're talking about a factor of 2, when so many costs of education are fixed, you know, to me it goes a little bit beyond equity. It's a grab, and you know, it limits everything we can do. And I almost believe it's counterproductive. I'll get off my soapbox in a minute, because what is to motivate voters across the state to say, and we're not talking about bonds. I want to take it off the table because that's your money spent here or wherever you live. But what's to motivate voters to either even consider tax increases for education or tell their state assemblymen to allocate more of the total budget of the state to K through 12 education, when that happens and the way the formula works, we'll get $1 more and they'll get 2. So why should somebody out here or in any of the other areas raise their own taxes when it's so disproportionately allocated? So it's just food for thought. You know, we often talk about budgets. We're going to vote on contracts a little bit later, and it just floored me. I mean, I know the formulas, but it never dawned on me that you could actually work out to almost a factor of 2 in what people have to educate their children with. Anyway, for me, it's a little bit beyond equitable. So it's not exactly a good news story, but it is the way the system is right now, and people need to be aware of it. Okay, that was item 1, and I got my dander up, you can see. Item 2 is different. And so I'm segueing, I'm taking the opportunity to do this tonight just because we have a short agenda, and normally we have longer agendas. So I'm gonna start by saying, you know, it's tough to be the boss. The boss is constantly, when things go right, the boss showers that upon all the people that work for them. It lifts their spirits, it's a wonderful acknowledgement. When things don't go right, the boss, in the words of Harry Truman, gets the buck stops here and takes the heat. And yet bosses are people too, and it's important to make sure that they understand the value of their work. When you spend all your time telling how all your subordinates are doing, who's there to thank you for your effort? And that's what I'm doing tonight. And and I'm referring to Mr. King, our superintendent. And what brought this on is when I was at the Welcome Back breakfast, we all had a good chuckle because Mr. King got in a tub of ice water, or his whole tub filled with ice water, to share and open up about himself and share with the rest of us and his staff mostly how he learns to cope with stress and control it, and it's a skill of his, much like some people would share yoga. But in doing so, you really opened up and put yourself out there. And similarly, when he's gone and played trumpet, and you're an amateur trumpet player, I think it's probably fair to say, very fair, in front of every parent and student at Meadowlark School, that also is putting yourself out there, opening up. And when you wear Dr. Seuss hats, which are very flattering. And all of this stuff we kind of sometimes think is silly, or even some of us might be cynical. But it's not silly. What it is courageous. And cynicism is what people use because they don't want to do anything different, myself included, because it's safe to do what you've always done. Courage is opening yourself up, trying new things, sharing about yourself, making it comfortable for other people to open up and try new things because you've done it yourself. And I thought, I've got these gold coins, and I think that it's entirely appropriate to award you the gold coin because of your leadership. You lead by example, and you're leading by opening up and making yourself vulnerable so other people and students see it too. If a student sees Mr. King working on that trumpet in front of a room full of people, maybe they're more likely, when they get to high school or junior high, to sing in the herd. Very intimidating. I would never have done it. Sing in front of a whole school as part of 4 or 5 person vocal choir. And so that's example setting. And it's example setting really for all of us. And as I said, what's that? And it is, it's the growth mindset. The other thing that was mentioned was it was put in the context of wellness. Now folks, I've been doing this for like 8 years, and maybe you know Mr. Trusell and Mr. Jorgensen because you've been on the other side. I don't know when the last time we ever talked about wellness in this district was. I think we've been so busy with the nuts and the bolts of the day-to-day, I don't know that we focus on wellness. And having this conversation of wellness, and if we're taking care of ourselves and sharing how each of us take care of ourselves and taking care of each other, it can't hurt the students at all. It's only got to help. So at any rate, I was touched by that latest example of courage and leadership to try to get all of us to open up, try new things, because some of that stuff will stick and will work. And we just have to wait to see that maturation. It takes time, but we've been at it for 2 years. These videos are part of it. And by the way, there's a fancy study called the Searchlight study. Searchlight. Yeah, that we learned about, which says, boards that talk about performance, just having the conversations, it trickles down and performance improves. It takes time. And that's what he's been doing with us, and he's been trying to move all of us out of our comfortable places, including the board. So, here's your gold coin. My words say, Larry, thanks for working so hard to bring out the best in yourself and all of us. It's a pleasure to work with you, and I am growing. This is from me. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. I got 2 things off my chest. Back to the meeting.
Can I say something?
Sure, of course.
I'm very floored by your comments. You're always eloquent, but very surreal comments you made, and I love working with this board. I love working with our community. I love working with our teachers, our classified employees. People say it's 75 miles each way so far, but it's a privilege to work here. I love it. I love the duty of servant leadership, and that's how I view it. And I'm very proud to work in Acton, I will say. And I kind of have a nickname for myself in my head, like, you know, do it twice there. It seems it takes me at least 2 times to do anything successfully my whole life, and I just have to work hard at them. But your comments just were really floored me. So I was very much caught off guard, but thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. Okay.
And by the way, that video took me 72 hours to decide if I was gonna actually
I'm
show
sure
it.
it did.
Because I showed it to my wife like twice, I showed it to Yolanda like 3 times.
But you had the courage to put yourself out there, even though I gave you, and Kelly next to me, a little bit of cynical giggle.
I didn't.
Until
I just went straight to therapy.
Until I realized why I was giggling. And I was giggling because I wouldn't have done it myself. I wouldn't have put myself out there to share with other people what works for me, and you tell me what works for you, and let's all work together, maybe getting ourselves to a better place. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 10.1, approval of the consent calendar items.
I'll move it in.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so Ken and Kelly, I'll go with. Okay. The consent agenda. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
Let's not pull it, but let's thank Varsity Cheer for their universal gift.
Yes.
Perfect, okay?
All right. Okay, call the question?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, that's a 500. See, something happened in the last hour. Okay, 10.2, warrant register. Oh, I'm sorry, that's part of the consent agenda. So I should have read off for you. The consent agenda includes the warrant register, the personal action report, the universal gift that Mr. Falsgraf was speaking of, and the minutes of our last board meeting. Okay, 11, business. 11.1 is the tentative agreement between the Acton Aguadulce Teachers Association and the Acton Aguadulce Unified School District for the 2018 through 2021 collective bargaining agreement period. And the public disclosure of that agreement, or that proposed agreement. Somebody want to move it in? Okay, so Kelly Jensen, and I'll have
Tim, I don't know what's going on.
and I'll have Tim second it. And this discussion, you probably have to outbrief us on it?
Yeah, just a couple comments on it. So you see the fiscal impact there of $177,000. Ms. David can answer any detailed questions you have, but essentially, when you complete the bargaining process, this was the bargaining of the full agreement, so a 3-year agreement, and a part of the bargaining was also for compensation of health and welfare benefits as well as salary. So this particular agenda item is in reference to our teachers, Adam, and so we did come to an agreement with them in June, but it was towards the end of June. And 2 things need to happen subsequent to a successful bargaining agreement in regards to compensation and the fiscal impact. One is called an AB 1200, which is here as an attachment, but just for public edification, the AB 1200 is the county's stamp of approval that the district has the funds to make this happen successfully, fiscally successfully, so to speak. But the other piece of that is that the county was clear in their AB 1200 approval that almost like a caution, like district, please take into account that funds that are not guaranteed to be an ongoing source of revenue should not be considered as part of your compensation package or any other ongoing commitments financially. So I don't know that I've seen that before from the county, but except when I was at RIM when there was fiscal concerns, they did put caveats in there. But anyhow, I wanted to bring that to the board's attention, and I'm but this is the agreement again between us, the district, and the association for a $3,000 increase to health and welfare benefits, taking it from $5,000 per employee to a total of $8,000 per employee for our certificated employees.
Comment. To translate that to everyone who has my level of education, what that says is there is somewhere between 20 and 30% of our revenue is based on charter revenue. So what you just heard is the county is telling you that in order to be positively certified, the difference between that and negative certification is your ability to hold a reserve of 3% of your budget at the end of the year. A significant amount of our revenue, including the amount of reserve we have, is based on charter revenue. So if you're smart, you will look at the charter revenue and watch what's happening. There's legislation, there's all kinds of things affecting this, and I've been talking to you about this since 8 years ago in the newspaper. So they're telling you that we're giving you this little warning that says don't depend on that to be there long term. So does that sum it up pretty well?
Yes, it does.
Perfect, thank you.
Just one other comment, Melissa Trussell is here, she was just coming from her daughter's varsity volleyball game, and so, you know, we weren't sure if she was gonna be here. It was close, but we lost.
They went head-to-head, all 4 sets, but
It happened, as long as they gave it their all.
they did.
Good, good. And so, I just want to acknowledge the teachers present here tonight, specifically Ms. Trussell is the president, and both parties worked hard at the table. It's not easy to come to an agreement. It takes work, it takes time away from your classrooms, time away from your desks, from Ms. David and Dr. Cooper and the administrative team, and so I appreciate all parties at the table working on this together and coming to a resolution that we're here to bring to the board tonight.
One more thing. I thank the unions and the associations for keeping on top of what's happening with our financial situation and coming to the table in good faith with numbers that make sense instead of being ridiculous and making it difficult. So thank you very much, and pass that on to your colleagues, please.
Anybody else? Okay, call the question.
Aye.
So we have, let's see, right, ratified, approved the proposed agreement.
You've approved the proposed agreement.
There we go, so approved.
And congratulations, Ms. Trussell, your teachers and the district. Thank you.
11.2 is the tentative agreement between the California School Employees Association, chapter number 473, and the Acton Aguadulce Unified School District for the negotiated proposal dated June 6, 2019, covering the 2018 and 19 school year and the 2019 and 20 school year, and the public disclosure of that proposed bargaining agreement. I'll move it in. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I'm gonna give this one to Ken. Okay.
So, similar again as far as the AB 1200 piece goes, what's different is, of course, this is in regards to our CSCA, our classified employees, so all of our non-teaching employees. And the difference here is that they were bargaining retroactively and simultaneously ongoing. They also concluded in June, and so this tentative agreement covers the period of July 1, 2018 to June 30th, 2020. The tentative agreement with CSCA provides for a 0.5% salary increase retroactive to July 1, 2018, a one-time off salary schedule payment of 1.5%, and an ongoing 2.5% salary increase effective July 1, 2019. Just a little bit of background on the bargaining that took place there. It was a tough, you're not seeing Ms. T smiling and laughing. It was a tough bargaining session because there's other things at play when you're trying to bargain retroactively as well as ongoing. But additionally, there's also the minimum wage piece, which affects our classified bargaining unit. So we're trying to deal with that, and you know, there's all kinds of language about what we call the salary schedule, bottom right, bottom left, top right, top left, and trying to align all those cells. And so, again, I just appreciate all of their efforts at the table to come to a reasonable conclusion, as Mr. Falsgraf stated, instead of coming with really sort of outlandish proposals that make it very difficult to bargain. So, unless you have questions, that's it for my points.
So now, this year we had retro plus ongoing, so now we're back on track. So next year it will just be on, it won't be any retro because we're all caught up.
That's correct, and both associations are with the district on the same timeline.
And the change in the benefit that's the 10 from the 95 to 10, now is that applicable to the certificate as well? Does that stay at the 95 or does that go up to 10?
No, there are two different agreements. So sometimes units have a Me Too clause where the classified unit, I won't say typically, but oftentimes has a Me Too to mirror what the certificated bargain. However, in this district, that would be a little bit challenging to do because they both have very different health benefits. And also different needs, frankly, when we talk about the assumptions and the needs at the table. So they bargain independently, and so one applies to salary in one unit, and then with the other unit applied to benefits, health benefits.
And just to clarify, each of the units chose, they could have been the money that was available, that's what each unit chose as what was important to them.
To meet the expectations of all their members.
Right.
That's where a lot of the dialogues came in, is where did the bargaining unit members see that it was most appropriate to see, what was available to be on the table, how they wanted it to be spent.
All right, call the question?
Aye.
Aye. Thank both organizations.
Thank you, Ms. T, and thank you for always being at our board meetings, and please pass along, we appreciate all the work at the table.
Thanks for helping educate that one down there. Okay, let's see. Item 11, tentative agreement covering certificated management employees, classified management employees, and confidential employees for the 2018-19 and 2019-20 school years. I'll move this one in. Somebody want a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion, Mr. King?
Sure, so we have different classifications of managers. So classified management would be your cafeteria and nutrition services manager. Ernesto Mora is a classified manager over facilities maintenance operations. Confidential employees, we have two of them in the district, Yolanda McCulley and Lucy Tome. So there needs to be a separate action item for the board to approve. This would be an example of a Me Too. So this would be a Me Too agreement. They're entitled to the same agreement that you just approved for classified employees.
Right, so I'm interpreting the write-up here, and certificated management kind of Me Too with the certificated
That's
employees,
right.
so they got it in the form of benefits. And classified management kind of Me Too'd over with the classified, and they have it in the form of salary increase.
Correct, and the reason you don't approve certificated management is because it's already embedded in their language. They already have a contract
I see.
that states that they would have the same as certificated teachers.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, call the question. Aye. Okay, last piece of business tonight is 11.4, certification of signatures. Somebody want to move it? Kelly?
So moved.
Brandon, did you just second?
Yes.
Okay, welcome to the board. Mr. King, you want us to give a little overview what this is?
Yeah,
We know
Ms.
what
this
it
is just an authorization that these are the signatures indeed of the people that are signing. They print their name and we verify that that's their signature for the board.
Correct. County office needs to have that on file because they truly do check those to make sure that everybody who's authorized to sign on any expenditures is the correct person.
And the reason we're bringing it forward is because we have a new board member.
Yeah, 'cause normally we do it in.
No, it's fine, your signature is gonna be registered with the county. Okay, any other discussion?
Anyone tell us before?
Wait, the county of LA, not the county of Tijuana, right?
Okay. All right, we're almost done, folks. I'm gonna call this one to question. Aye? Okay. That's unanimously approved. Future agenda items, it's blank tonight. Rest assured, there will be some, there's always some. Item 13 is the calendar. We have 2 board meetings in September. We're basically on our regular schedule. Second and fourth Thursday of each month. And so that would be September 12th and September 26th. And in closed session, item 14.1, did we take any formal action? We did not take any formal action in closed session, so there's nothing to report out. And that leads us to item 15, which is adjournment. Does somebody want to make a motion? Tim Jorgensen, second. Very good, and we're going to call it, okay. Call the question to adjourn. Aye, so that's a 5-0-0 at